So I decided to do a little bit of refactoring on the code here for this next segment. I moved the storage account table client and the table references out of the main class and main method and into the class level, made them static variables up here, set them once and I don't have to reset them. I moved the insert code into an insert method. Okay, so that's exactly as it was before. I just refactored it a little bit. Now I actually, now that I have it as a method, I can call it multiple times. So I'm calling John Doe, Tony Soprano, Richard Smith. Now in this lesson, we're going to talk about querying. Okay, so now that we've done this insert command, and maybe we can do it a few more times, how do we get that data out of a storage table? So the secret, the key here is this table query object, right? It basically is the where you build your query, and then you call execute query in order for that to be executed. Again, this reminds me very much of ADO in terms of building the command and then executing the command. So in the table query, there is a where clause. So we just build a query. You can have, if you do a dot command here, we can see that it's got select, take, and other options, but the one that we're interested in is the where clause in this case. And we want to filter all of the elements in the table, the employee entity, based on, and in this case, I'm filtering it based on partition key. Now remember, in the last lesson I was talking about how partition key is basically a way of partitioning the table in case it gets really large and Microsoft behind the scenes has to divide this up. Then you're going to want to use a partition key that will allow it to determine which data can go into which server. In this case, I've set all of them to staff, so I'm just going to do a query for the partition key equals staff. Now, in the way that I've set this up, if we go back to the entity, every employee is being set to staff. So I'm not using the partition key to partition to anything, and in fact, this where clause is kind of unnecessary because every record should have the value staff. But you can create, your where clause to be on any, their title, their department, etc. Any sort of valid and invalid condition that you want. So now I've built a query that's basically going to filter out only to staff. And now I'm just going to do a for each loop where I execute the query against the employees table, and then I basically write out the row key, which happens to be their combination of first name and last name, to the console. Now, in order to get this to execute, I had to add a no parameter constructor to the employee entity because I'm creating an employee without passing in values, I guess. Okay, so I had to do that to get that to work. Now, if I hit F5, it's gone and inserted John Doe, Richard Smith, and Tony Soprano as I asked it to do. And now it's queried that table and returned back the structured information. I added a press any key to end with a read key in order for us to be able to examine this console output. So querying a table all comes down to this table query and then building your query to whatever values of the table you want to extract.